Now, it's perfectly good to have the intention to give superior service, but what do you do when things don't go the way you planned? What do you do when things go wrong? Then, the way you and your organization respond in that kind of a breakdown situation could be every bit as important as your intention to give superior service in the first place. Let's take a look. There was a gentleman from Texas named Charlie. Now, Charlie worked for an electronics company, and Charlie's company was going to send him off to Bangkok, Thailand, to run the factory in Thailand. They were going to send him off for 2 or 3 years. So they wanted to make sure that Charlie would settle in well, and they did everything they could to help prepare. They got him a very nice condominium. They got a wonderful office for the company. They hired a wonderful, superior local staff. But you know, there are some things that the company just can't do when they send somebody overseas. For example, the company couldn't open Charlie's bank account for him. He had to do that for himself. So he was sitting in his condominium one day, and he looked over across the street. He saw 2 banks, side by side. Now, he decided that he could really use a checking account because he had to pay bills and the normal business activity. So he went over and he said, I'm going to go to the bank that has a better product. He checked it out. The product between the 2 banks for a checking account was the same. So he said, I know, I'm going to go to the bank that has better delivery systems. And so he checked, and he saw that the opening hours, they were the same. He went to the closing hours, and they were the same too. And both banks had automated teller machines, and both banks had branches all over town, so he couldn't very well choose based on the better delivery system. They were the same. Now, he hadn't actually started working with either bank, so he couldn't even make an opinion based on service mindset. So he did what any normal human being would do. He reached in his pocket, he pulled out a coin, flipped it up in the air, and he chose to go to the bank on the right. In he goes. He sat down with the officer there, he filled out all the forms, and 2 weeks later, Charlie got his checks. The checks had his name on them, and they were spelled correctly. So right away, he started using the checks. He'd pay his bills, he'd give checks to people he owed money to, and everything was fine. Every month, he'd get his checking statement in the mail, and everything was accurate. Charlie, who previously had had no business with this bank, and so no loyalty at all, now had some business going with the bank. And for the first time, Charlie's loyalty to the bank started to go up. He had a checking account. Now let me ask you, when Charlie opened up that checking account, do you think he told many people about it? Do you think he went to the office and said, look, folks, I have checks? No, of course not. They'd look at him like he was strange. Do you think he told his mother when he spoke to her each week on the phone? No, he kept that to himself. And then a few more months went by. Charlie realized that he was doing a lot of his purchasing with his credit card, but it was the credit card that he had from his bank back in Texas. And so every month when he paid off his credit card balance, he noticed that there was something that didn't used to be there before when he was in the United States. It was called a currency exchange rate. Well, because he was doing all of his charging in the local currency, it's called the Thai baht. But he was paying every month in US dollars. And he checked, and he noticed that that exchange rate wasn't really in his favor. So he made the wise decision. He said, I'm going to get myself a credit card in the local currency so I can do my charging and also my payments in the local currency Thai baht. Of course, he had to go to the bank. Which bank do you think Charlie would go to? Well, he'd go to the same bank, right? But if the other bank had a credit card with a lower annual fee, or a credit card with a lower interest rate for outstanding balance, do you think he might switch? Sure he would. You probably would too. I would. But as it turned out, the credit card between this bank and that bank were the same. Since he was already doing some banking with this bank, he went ahead and he filled out the forms to get himself a brand new credit card. 2 weeks later, Charlie's credit card arrived. They spelled his name correctly. He started using the card to make payments and fly around and stay places. His loyalty to the bank went up. How many people do you think Charlie told about his brand new credit card? Do you think he told his mom in his weekly phone call, Mom, got myself a credit card? Do you think he'd walk into the factory floor and pull out his credit card? Look, everybody, got myself a credit card in Thai baht. I would hope not. Kept it in his pocket. Now, a few more months go by. And Charlie decided that if he was going to be in Bangkok for a period of years, he wanted to get himself a nice car. He was tired of riding around in taxis. And the thing about Bangkok, for those of you who don't know, is in Bangkok, you don't really drive so much. The traffic is so congested, you get in your car, you put it out on the road, and you park for a while until all the traffic moves forward a little bit and a little bit. So as long as he was going to be spending time in traffic like that, he decided to get himself a very special car. Charlie chose a deep green metallic BMW with a sunroof. And to make the car extra special, because he was going to have to spend all that time in traffic, he had them pull out the back seat and install a small jacuzzi for his soaking pleasure in traffic. Well, for a car like that, you need a car loan. Charlie needed a car loan, and of course he had to go to a bank. Which bank do you think he went to? Charlie went back to his bank. In fact, his loyalty to the bank was so high now that he didn't call it that bank, he called it my bank. Isn't that what you call your bank? Hey, where are you going? Oh, I'm going down to my bank. Really? You own the bank? Well, no, but your loyalty is so high, you call it my bank. So the bank gave Charlie the loan. He got this beautiful new car, and his loyalty to the bank went up. Now, when you get a brand new car like that, how many people do you tell about your new car? Everybody. Especially your mother on your weekly phone call back to Texas. Oh, but how many people do you tell about the car loan? Nobody. You walk around, paid cash. Well, everything was going fine. Until one day, Charlie came back from work, and he found in his mail his monthly credit card statement. It comes every month, nothing special about it. He just opened up the mail, started reading through. Hey, whoa. Wait a minute, what is this? What is this? And this? He looked at it and something was wrong. The numbers and the places looked very, very familiar. So he went over here to his files and he pulled out last month's credit card statement and he held them side by side. And he looked, he said, wait a minute now, there's 3 charges on here. There's a hotel and a restaurant and a clothing store, the same ones as last month. The numbers are exactly the same as last month, except I paid it off last month in full and I didn't go back a second time. This bank is double billing me. They're ripping me off. I don't like this one bit. And in that moment, where did Charlie's loyalty to the bank go? Meow, dropped like a rock. How many people does he tell? Everybody, even his mother back in Texas. Well, Charlie decided he's going to give this bank a piece of his mind. He picked up the phone and he called the credit card center and spoke to one of the officers and said, look, you guys better hurry up and fix this thing right away because you've messed it up and I'm not going to stand for it one bit. And the woman said, well, excuse me, sir, but I can tell from your tone of voice we must have done something to upset you or inconvenience you. Please accept my sincere apologies. Hey, at this point, she didn't even know if he was a real customer of the bank, but already she's apologizing. Charlie said, you better do more than just apologize. You better get rid of this problem right away. And she said, well, sir, what seems to be the problem? You'll see what the problem is. You pull up this month's credit card statement, and you pull up last month's credit card statement, and you put the two of them side by side. You're going to notice that there are 3 charges on there. You've got a hotel and a restaurant and a clothing store. The numbers are the same as last month. I paid it off in full last month. I didn't go back a second time, but you're charging me a second time. You guys are ripping me off. What are you going to do about this? And the woman said, Mr. Charlie, it's done. What do you mean it's done? Well, I fixed it. I've given you a full credit for that amount of those 3 charges onto your credit card statement, and next month you'll see that amount offsetting your outstanding balance. And Charlie said, well, listen, you guys better not let this happen again. And she said, sir, once again, please accept my sincere, but it was too late. Charlie had, boom, hung up the phone.